Da Nang is the third largest city in Vietnam in terms of urban population and one of the major port cities, in addition to Ho Chi Minh City and Hai Phong. Situated on the coast of the Eastern Sea, at the opening end of the Han River, it is the biggest city in central Vietnam. It is governed as one of the 5 direct-controlled municipalities of the SRV and is thus under direct administration of the central government. Da Nang is the commercial and educational center of central Vietnam, with a well-sheltered, easily accessible port is its location on the path of National Route 1A, and the North-South Railway makes it a hub for transportation. It is located within 100 kilometers of several UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including the Imperial City of Hue, the Old Town of Hoi An, and the Mai Son ruins. The city was previously known as Si Han during early Thai Viet settlement, and as Touraine during French colonial rule. Before 1997, the city was part of Quang Nam Danang province. On 1 January 1997, Da Nang was separated from Quang Nam province to become one of 4 independent municipalities in Vietnam. Da Nang is listed as a first-class city, and has a higher urbanization ratio than any of Vietnam's other provinces or centrally governed cities. Names and etymology. Most of the names by which Da Nang has been known make reference to its position at the Han River estuary. The city's present name is generally agreed to be a Vietnamese adaptation of the Cham word Da-Nak, which is translated as opening of a large river. Other Chamic sources with similar definitions have been proposed. Inrisara, a researcher specializing in Kampa, suggests Da Nang is a variation of the Cham word Danang. Sakar, another Kampa researcher, claims a connection with the Raglai word Danang, meaning river source. Another name given to Da Nang was Si Han. The name used by the French, Touraine, is said to derive from this name, by way of a rough transliteration. Notably, this name appears on maps of the area drafted by Alexandre de Rhodes in 1650. The name Kien was another name purportedly used during the 17th century to refer to the land situated at the foot of the Hai Van Pass. Other names referring to Da Nang include Vung Thung, a colloquial name which survives in folklore, Trauc, Trao, Tra Sun, and Thong Long Lone, literary names used by Confucian scholars. In Sino-Vietnamese script, used until 1945, Ta Nang is written as Tai Phin, a name used briefly after the 1945 August Revolution, commemorating Tai Phin, the leader of popular revolts during the 1916 Huy Tan resistance. History. The city's origins date back to the ancient kingdom of Kampa, established in 192 AD. At its peak, the Cham's sphere of influence stretched from Hue to Vung Tau. The city of Indrapura, at the site of the modern village of Dong Thuong in Quang Nam province from Da Nang, was the capital of Kampa from about 875 to about 1000 AD. Also in the region of Da Nang were the ancient Cham city of Singapura, the location of which has been identified with an archaeological site in the modern village of Traq, and the valley of Mai Son, where a number of ruined temples and towers can still be viewed. In the latter half of the 10th century, the kings of Indrapura came into conflict with the Thai Viet, who were then based at Hoa Lu near modern Hanoi. In 982, 3 ambassadors sent to Kampa by King Lahone of the Thai Viet were detained in Indrapura. Lahone decided to go on the offensive, sacking Indrapura and killing the Cham king Parameshwaravarman I. As a result of these setbacks, the Cham eventually abandoned Indrapura around 1000 AD. The Thai Viet campaign against Kampa continued into the late 11th century, when the Cham were forced to cede the 3 northern provinces to the rulers of the Lai dynasty. Soon afterwards, Vietnamese peasants began moving into the untilled former Cham lands, turning them into rice fields and moving relentlessly southward, delta by delta, along the narrow coastal plain. The southward expansion of Thai Viet continued for several centuries, culminating in the annexation of most of the Cham territories by the end of the 15th century. Western contact. One of the first Europeans to visit Da Nang was Portuguese explorer Antonio de Faria, who anchored in Da Nang in 1535. Faria was one of the first Westerners to write about the area, and, through his influence, Portuguese ships began to call regularly at Hoi An, which was then a much more important port than Da Nang. Throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, French and Spanish traders and missionaries regularly made landfall at Hoi An, just south of Da Nang. An American, John White, arrived at Da Nang on the 18th of June 1819 in the brig Franklin of Salem, Massachusetts, and was advised that the country was recovering from devastating wars, and that what little produce there had already been promised. Other American ships arriving shortly after were the Marmion of Boston, and the Aurora and Beverly of Salem. Conditions were such that they were unable to conduct trade, and the subsequent missions of British East India Company agent John Crawford in 1823 and the two missions of Andrew Jackson's agent, diplomatist Edmund Roberts, in 1833 and 1836 were unable to secure trade agreements. Following the edict of Emperor Minh in 1835, prohibiting European vessels from making landfall or pursuing trade except at Han Port, Da Nang quickly surpassed Hoi An, becoming the largest commercial port in the central region. In 1847, French vessels dispatched by Admiral Kekel bombarded Da Nang, ostensibly on the grounds of alleged persecution of Roman Catholic missionaries. In August 1858, once again ostensibly on the grounds of religious persecution, French troops, led by Admiral Charles Rigaud de Gentilly, and under the orders of Napoleon III, landed in Da Nang as part of the punitive Cochinchina campaign. The French overpowered the Vietnamese stationed in Da Nang, swiftly occupying the city and Tien Sa Peninsula. Despite their initial success, the occupying forces were quickly placed under siege by the Vietnamese army under the command of Nguyen Tri Phong, and were eventually forced to retreat in March 1860. Conversely, however, the French were able to invade the southern stronghold of Saigon and, in June 1862, several provinces of southern Vietnam were ceded to the French as Cochinchina with the signing of the Treaty of Saigon. Through 2 more decades of conflict, the French gradually strengthened the hold on Vietnam, culminating in the establishment of French Indochina in October 1887. 2 years later, in 1889, the French colonists renamed the city Tourane, placing it under the control of the Governor-General of Indochina. It came to be considered one of Indochina's 5 major cities, among Hanoi, Saigon, Colon, Haiphong, and U. Republic of Vietnam. During the Republic of Vietnam, the city was home to a major airbase that was used by both the South Vietnamese and United States Air Forces in the war in Vietnam. The base was considered one of the world's busiest airports during the war, reaching an average of 2,595 air traffic operations daily, more than any other airport in the world at the time. The final U.S. ground combat operations in Vietnam ceased on 13 August 1972, when a residual force of the 196th Light Infantry Brigade stood down in Da Nang. B Battery 3rd Battalion, 82nd Field Artillery Regiment fired the final U.S. artillery round, and the 3rd Battalion, 21st Infantry Regiment finished the final patrols. This residual force was known as Operation Gimlet, after the U.S. withdrawal from the conflict, in the final stage of the conquering of South Vietnam by North Vietnam. Da Nang fell to the Communist forces March 29–30, 1975. The posts of the Vietnam issued 2 special postage stamps to commemorate this event, within its total liberation stamp set issued December 14, 1976. Geography. Da Nang is the largest city in central Vietnam and one of the country's most important ports, ringed by mountains on one side and the South China Sea on the other. Da Nang borders Hoa Thanh Hu Province across the Hai Van Pass to the north, Quang Nam Province to the south and west, and the ocean to the east. It is 759 kilometers south of Hanoi and 960 kilometers north of Ho Chi Minh City. Geology and topography. Geologically, Da Nang is situated at the edge of a Paleozoic fold belt known as the Trong Son Orogenic Zone, whose main deformation occurred during the early Carboniferous period. Da Nang's topography is dominated by the steep Annamite mountain range to the north and northwest, featuring peaks ranging from 700 to 1,500 meters in height, and low-lying coastal plains with some salting to the south and east, with several white sand beaches along the coast. Climate. Da Nang has a tropical monsoon climate with 2 seasons, a typhoon and amp wet season lasting from September through March and a dry season lasting from April through August. Temperatures are typically high, with an annual average of 25.9 degrees Celsius. Temperatures are highest between June and August, and lowest between December and February. The annual average for humidity is 81%, with highs between October and December and lows between June and July. On average, Da Nang receives 2,505 millimeters of rainfall. Rainfall is typically highest between October and November, and lowest between January and April. Da Nang receives an average of 2,156 hours of sunlight annually, with highs between 234 and 277 hours per month in May and June, and lows between 69 and 165 hours per month in November and December. Natural disasters. Da Nang is susceptible to damage from typhoons that cross into the South China Sea. In 2006, the landfall of Typhoon Zhangsan near the city of Hue caused 26 deaths in Da Nang, damaging and destroying homes, downing trees and power lines, and flooding major streets. Authorities in Da Nang estimated the damage caused by Zhangsan at around $200 million, with more than 5,000 houses washed away, 166,000 homes damaged, and 19 boats sunk. 3 years later, Typhoon Ketsana made its landfall about 37 miles south of Da Nang, again causing widespread flooding. Ketsana left 8 people dead and 96 injured in Da Nang, and caused an estimated 495 billion Vietnamese dongs in damage. Shortly after the 2011 Tohoku earthquake, which triggered a powerful tsunami, the People's Committee of Da Nang approved the installation of 10 early tsunami warning stations throughout the city, the first of the kind in Vietnam. Officials expected the stations would provide at least 30 minutes of warning in case of a tsunami. According to Minh, director of the Earthquake and Tsunami Warning Center at the Vietnam Institute of Geophysics, a powerful earthquake in the waters north of the Philippines could pose a significant danger to the Vietnamese coastline, particularly the area around Da Nang. Demographics. Da Nang is the 5th most populated city in Vietnam, with an area of 1,255.53 square kilometers and a population of 951,700 as of 2011. Women make up 50.7% of Da Nang's population, population growth. Da Nang's population has been growing at rates of between 2.5% and 3% during most of the years between 2005 and 2011, significantly exceeding the national average of 1% to 1.2%. The growth rate briefly rose to 3.6% in 2010 before returning to its long-term trend with 2.68% in 2011. This is the third fastest growth rate in the country after the two southern manufacturing centers Binh Duong Province and Phong Nai Province. Da Nang's population is estimated to reach 1 million inhabitants by 2014. Migration has been the dominant factor in the city's population growth, at least since 2009, contributing 1.6% to 2.7% between 2009 and 2011. Out-migration has been relatively high in 2011 at 0.79% compared to 0.34% and 0.55% in previous years, while the in-migration rate has been exceeding 2% since 2009 and was at 2.28% in 2011. Da Nang's natural population growth is only slightly higher than the national average. Its crude birth rate was recorded at 18 live births per 1,000 persons. The crude death rate was measured at 6.7 per 1,000 persons in 2011. Life expectancy at birth was estimated at 77.4 years for women and 72.4 years for men, or 74.8 years overall in the 2009 population census. The infant mortality rate was measured at 9.9 infant deaths per 1,000 live births, less than 2 points above the nation's average for urban areas. Urbanization. The city has the highest urbanization ratio among provinces and municipalities in Vietnam, containing only 11 rural communes, the fewest of any province-level unit in Vietnam. As of 2009, 86.9% of Da Nang's population lived in urban areas. Average annual urban population growth was 3.5%. Politics. The leading organ of the Communist Party in Da Nang City is the Executive Committee of the Communist Party. The current secretary is Nguyen Chan A&H. The legislative branch of the city is the People's Council of Da Nang City. The current chairman is Nguyen Chan A&H. The executive branch of the city is the People's Committee of Da Nang City. The current chairman is Hein Duc Tho. Administrative divisions. Da Nang is subdivided into 8 district-level subdivisions, 2 rural districts, 6 urban districts. They are further subdivided into 1 commune-level town, 14 communes, and 45 wards. Before 1997, the city was part of Quang Nam Da Nang Province. On the 1st of January 1997, Da Nang was separated from Quang Nam Province to become one of 5 independent municipalities in Vietnam. Economy. Da Nang is the leading industrial center of Central Vietnam. Its GDP per capita was 19 million Vietnamese dongs in 2007, one of the highest in Vietnam. By 2009, this had increased to 27.3 million Vietnamese dongs. Da Nang led the Provincial Competitiveness Index rankings in 2008, 2009, and 2010, benefiting mostly from good infrastructure, good performance in labor training, transparency, proactive provincial leadership and low entry costs. Exports increased to $575 million in 2008 but fell back to $475 million in 2009. Agriculture, forestry, fishing. Despite its status as a city, 37,800 people in Da Nang were employed in agriculture, forestry and fishing as of 2007, producing 45,000 t of rice and 41,000 t of fish. However, employment in these sectors had a clear negative trend in the first decade of the 21st century. Gross output has also been decreasing during the second half of the decade. Given Da Nang's lack of agricultural land and its location at the coast, fishing has been contributing more to the economy than agriculture, with a gross output more than twice that of agriculture. Industry. Da Nang is a diversified industrial center, including industries such as machinery, electrics, chemicals, shipbuilding, and textiles. Specific industrial products include aquatic products, fabric, clothes, bricks, fertilizer, cement, soap, paper, and medical tablets. The city's industry may diversify further. EADS is planning to set up an industrial park focused on the aviation industry in Da Nang. As of 2007, Da Nang industry was dominated by the state sector, which made up 57% of gross output. This is about the same as its share in 2000. Interestingly, over 80% of the state industry is centrally managed. Almost half of the rest is contributed by the foreign invested sector, while the private domestic sector is still relatively small and has not been able to significantly increase its share compared to the state sector. Industry grew by an average 14.8% per year from 2000 to 2007, making it the main engine of economic growth. However, it has the second lowest industrial growth rate in the south-central coast. Employment has grown at an average 5.75%, reaching 118,900 in 2007. Trade. Historically, Da Nang's main marketplace has been the Han Market, which is located downtown near the western bank of the Han River, between Tran Phu and Bac Dang streets. This market, much like Ben Than Market in Saigon, offers a wide variety of goods sold by many different vendors, such as clothing, silk, jewelry, flowers, foodstuffs such as dried fruit and fish, as well as coffee, tea and wine, etc. Property. Many new construction projects are underway in Da Nang, including several beachfront resorts such as the $130 million Hyatt Regency Da Nang Resort and Amp Spa, and the beach resort complex in Ngu Han Son. Another ambitious project, the $250 million Da Phoc International New Town, aims to construct an entirely new urban area on reclaimed land on the city's North Sea coast, making it the first major land reclamation project in central Vietnam. Plans for the Da Phoc project include the erection of a hotel and several smaller resorts, a 33-story apartment block and 60-story office block, an 18-hole golf course, a marina, as well as villas and international schools. Culture. Tourism. The tourism sector is a vital component of Da Nang's economy. Its status as a transportation hub for central Vietnam and its proximity to several UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including the Imperial City of Hue, the Old Town of Hoi An, and the My Son ruins, fuels much of its tourist activity. My Son is an archaeological site dating back more than 1,000 years in Quang Nam, located in a remote forested valley some 70 kilometers west of Da Nang. This former capital and religious center of the Kampak Kingdom once contained in excess of 70 style temples and stupas. Although badly damaged by bombing raids in the 1960s, the site still has more than 20 structures and was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1999. Many statues, sculptures and reliefs recovered from My Son are kept in the Museum of Cham Sculpture, near the Han River in the heart of Da Nang. dating from the 4th to the 14th centuries. The central artwork on these works depicts daily activities as well as Hindu and Buddhist religious themes. The Marble Mountains are rocky limestone outcrops jutting out of the beach just south of Danang. Paths lead to the top of the forested cliffs, affording spectacular views of Non Nook Beach and the South China Sea. The caves nestled in the cliffs were originally inhabited by the Cham people. Later, the Nguyen dynasty built numerous pagodas among the caves. The Marble Mountains are home to various artisans producing sculpture and artwork at its base at Non Nook Village. Non Nook Beach is a white sandy beach on the outskirts of Danang, is renowned for both its spectacular beauty and for its history as an R&R destination for American troops during the Vietnam War, when it was known as China Beach. Today, the beach, along with My Khe Beach to the north, are home to expensive resorts, surfing and entertainment facilities. Bana Hills is a mountain resort with a 5 kilometers long cable car system which carries guests up to Bana's peak at 1,487 meters above sea level. Sun Tra Mountain, just some miles away from downtown with some wild streams and resorts along the seaside. Culinary. The Central Vietnamese cuisine in general and Da Nang cuisine in particular are not only well known in the country but also all over the world. This is the region where you can find the strongest and boldest flavor foods available in Vietnam, such as Mi Quang, Bun Cha California, Bun Mam, Canh Gar Chen Mam, Mitron. Sports. Da Nang's football club, SHB Da Nang FC, plays in the V-League, Vietnam's top professional football league. They are currently one of the most highly ranked teams in that league, having emerged from competition as champions of the 2009 Volts League. In the same year, they were also champions at the Vietnamese Cup playoffs. They also qualified for the 2010 AFC Champions League and the 2010 AFC Cup, although they did not advance past the qualifying playoff in the Champions League. They advanced to the quarter-finals of the AFC Cup after defeating Beckham X in Duong in extra time. Several Da Nang FC players also play on Vietnam's national football team, including defender Vo Hoang Quang and midfielder Phan Than Hung. SHB Da Nang FC plays its home games at the Kai Lang Stadium, a 30,000-seat stadium in Hai Châu District. Education. There are several universities located in Da Nang, with campuses in many locations throughout the city, as well as satellite campuses in surrounding regions. University of Da Nang, with a number of member colleges, technology, economics, pedagogy, foreign languages, engineering, information technology, Kon Tum Campus, English Language Institute. Da Nang University of Medical Technology, Medicine and Pharmacy. Dui Tan University, private university. Dong A University, private university. Da Nang University of Architecture, the American University of Vietnam, private university. The city has 17 high schools, of which Le Quai Don High School for the Gifted is notably among the leading high schools in Vietnam. There is sizable presence of overseas education representatives in Da Nang, notably Campus France, a French government agency, in Da Nang City which promotes the learning of French language and supports students in Da Nang City and the neighborhood province in the seeking study opportunities for higher education system in France. A consultation service provided by Campus France is free of charge. English Language Institute is a learning centre built by University of Queensland, Australia, targeting at English teaching in general in addition to IELTS testing provider. Singapore International School is an international school in Da Nang.